Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk all about F keys, what they are, what they're useful for, and a bunch of examples of times that I use them in. As always, I will timestamp everything below, so let's get into it. So what are F keys? When people are talking about F keys, they're referring to the camera hotkeys, which can be found under hotkeys, camera control in your settings. By default, they're bound to F1 through F4, hence the name F keys. F keys are used to center your camera on either an ally or yourself, and F keys have a variety of uses. Obviously, they are both the fastest and most efficient way of moving the camera around the map, which is really useful, especially if you're laning or side laning. F keys are also really great for gathering information on other lanes or players, such as wave positioning, HP levels, cooldowns, etc. Some people like to use F keys as a sort of status check. You see Faker do this a lot, where you kind of just flick through all the other lanes to get a better picture of how the game is going. Most importantly though, I think F keys are crucial for roaming champions and side laners to make better decisions, which we'll get into at the end of the video when we go through all the examples. And finally, I think using F keys can make using global ultimates or using TP in the mid game quite a lot easier as well. So I think for learning how to use F keys, one of the most important things is coming into your bindings and trying to make it something you're comfortable with. Like I said before, it is bound to F1 through F4 by default, but for me, I bound it to buttons on my mouse, so I just have like a mouse wheel on the side of my mouse I can press buttons on, and that way I don't need to reach up to F1 through F4. Obviously, if you're comfortable pressing these buttons, it's fine. I just found it kind of weird, like when I'm trying to cast abilities, but also press F keys at the same time. I've seen people bind these to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then rebind their abilities to other letters on the keyboard, such as T or whatever for trinket, and some other ones. I've also seen like Z, X, C, and V. That's like another thing you can do. You'd have to rebind your retreat ping. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. I highly suggest that if you don't really feel comfortable using F1 through F4 to change to something else. If you do though, just leave that the same. Also make sure that one of these is bound so that you have a way to center the camera back on yourself, because we're going to be doing that quite a lot. Once you've done your bindings, just head over here and create a custom game and fill it up with a bunch of bots on your team. It doesn't really matter what the bots will be on the enemy team. Basically, we just want to simulate a game where we have lots of people on our team where we can jump our camera to. Once you get into game with your boss, just get into the habit of pressing the F keys and kind of cycling through your team, seeing what they're up to, that sort of thing. Obviously, since it's a bot match, they're not going to be up to too much, but to start with, you just really want to get used to using that instead of clicking top lane, for example, so you just flick up there. I think that's really important. Also, if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, you can practice CSing while F keying. So for example, I might come and CS against a Zillion bot. You can just make it, whatever champ and whatever difficulty, and then maybe after every CS, you just look to cycle through or something like that. Every time a CS dies, you just get in the habit of pressing these just to kind of, at the moment, we're just trying to get used to pressing the buttons as opposed to doing it at the right time. So don't worry too much about the fact that you're not getting CS. Once you get comfortable with the F keys, it's probably good to go into an actual game and start trying to get comfortable with looking for specific information. So rather than just cycling through the whole thing, maybe you're looking for something like when you want to roam bot, maybe you look at bot, check their health, check their wave position. It's just basically, rather than kind of like clicking on bot or just going bot without thinking about it, it's now we want to be looking for specific information when we kind of want it. So if we want to roam, maybe we consider where our jungler is, or we maybe think about is top diveable or that sort of thing. So once you get used to just pressing them, the next step is to really use them to access information that you're after. I'll go through a bunch of examples again at the end of all the different times that I think are best to use them. When you've got all the basics down, a couple other things I think are really important is to start trying to do it quicker. So obviously, if you have space bound to center camera or whatever, you can really quickly look at another lane and kind of get the information that you need, especially if you already know what you're looking for. Like if all we want is to look at their health, it's very easy for us to flick there and flick back. And not really take any time in doing so. Another thing that I think is kind of important is to remember to do it in downtime. If you're like harassing or trading with your opponent or you're last hitting, it's quite difficult to do like a full status check on your team, even if you cycle through them fairly fast. So it can be quite good for, like, if you use all your cooldowns, like let's say I QW while I'm walking back, maybe then I can look at it at the rest of my team. Another one could be when you're walking out of base. It's really common that while you're walking to lane, you kind of just like look at the lanes, look at the jungle, kind of see how stuff is going. So I think there's definitely a tendency for people that when they learn about F keys, they can kind of overcorrect, and start just like F keying constantly. And there isn't really a negative to F keying constantly, other than it could maybe give up some of your focus of the wave. So I think you really don't want to let like your laning phase or something suffer at a cost of your F keys. It's definitely you want F keys to be something that's an addition to your gameplay, not something that replaces other parts of your gameplay. So yeah, really try to get used to using it in downtime or when you don't have cooldowns up, or just like basically when you don't have other stuff to do. And if you are doing it in a time where you're really trying to trade and stuff as well, maybe we go for a really quick trade like this and then quickly cycle through the rest of the map while we're walking away. So as mentioned before, I think one of the times F keys is most important is when you are looking to roam or you're thinking about countering a roam. So this example here, I'm playing Ryze, a roaming champion. I'm also versus a roaming champion. So I have to be very aware of the side lanes and only use the F keys to do that. Here I see Galio starting to walk top, so I immediately am like, okay, he's probably going to dive top. So I'm checking top here with my F keys to see if he is diveable. He pretty clearly is. And then I kind of walk towards this while F keying to see if there's anything I can do. The moment this doesn't work out, I come back mid and I start looking bot to see if there's a way I can trade the other side. Normally, if someone makes a roam to one side of the map, you want to look to trade on the other side of the map. So all the decisions that you make here, you kind of can't make without real-time updates from your lanes. That's why you kind of have to be F-keying. You want to be like evaluating the top situation and seeing if you can go there or not. And then you also want to be looking to see like, okay, what can I do with this priority? In this case, I'm looking at bot lane. Are they in a gankable position? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. So if you play any roaming champion, this is a really, really good habit to get into. Another time it can be really important is when you are side laning. So at times like this, where you kind of need to check if you can pressure or not, you really need to see what your team is up to. If your team is dying, you might also want to click on the map like I'm doing here, as opposed to using the F key, because obviously if I F key, it's just going to focus on their dead body and there might not be people there anymore. So it's really useful to just know kind of in general what your team is up to while you're side laning, kind of checking like, are they basing? Are they clearing towards you? Are they clearing away from you? Can they actually pressure the map? There's all that kind of information that you can look for while you're side laning, and that just allows you to make kind of better decisions and make your side laning just a little bit safer. It's really good to F key when you're coming out of base, either walking to mid lane or walking to a side lane, just to kind of get an update on what your team is doing. It can give you an idea of what plays you might want to make. Like if you see, for example, that your top laner is already getting the enemy top laner low and your jungler's pathing towards that side, that could all mean that you can set up for a top gank. Kind of same thing here, maybe if we're just like looking at this specific example, I can see that like my bot lane is walking to lane, my jungler's not really in a position to do anything because they're doing Krugs, but my top laner is in position to make a play. So just kind of quickly looking through and reading the information almost and interpreting it and what it means. I think it's really useful, especially because again, it is kind of just downtime where there isn't a whole lot of stuff for you to do anyway, other than walk back to lane. If you're walking to a side lane, I think things you can check is just like which side of the map your jungler is on. Like if your jungler is on your side, maybe you can play really aggressively. If your jungler is on top or basing, maybe you can't. So those are also really good times. And finally, the last time I think F keys are really important is if you are taking TP or you have a global ultimate. This is an old example from when you could TP to minions, but it's not really about this example in particular. It's more that when you have an ability that can affect the other lanes, a lot of the time, the timing at which you ult or TP to the other lane is really crucial. If the play is delayed by maybe only 3 or 5 seconds, it can actually end up bad a lot of the time. So you really need to kind of have your eyes on the lane that you're looking to ult to or TP to a lot of the time. And that's just going to make the plays work out a lot more. So to kind of TLDR everything, I do think F keys are most important for roaming champions, but F keys, they can be somewhat useful at pretty much every stage of the game. But I really think, yeah, like the roaming, the TPing champions, and just kind of like keeping up to date on your team is the most important. There are obviously more uses to F keys than I've kind of talked about in these examples, but I think these are the examples you should really pay attention to. So guys, that is going to be it for my F keys video. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you did like the video, go ahead and like and subscribe. The thing with F keys is, like I kind of said throughout the video, is that they are useful, but there's a lot of other things in League that you should focus on before them. I actually did a tier list of the mid lane fundamentals on stream, which I'll probably put on YouTube in the near future. I think for F keys, they are, if you put a little bit of time into F keys, you can get quite a lot out of them. But I think your time is better spent mastering other skills. I wouldn't go and spend, say, 100 hours getting really good at F keys before you spend 100 hours getting really good at something more important like laning or team fighting or something like that. But as always, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.